Okay, and for those who have just joined, my name is Evangeline Arithwala, and I'm the Alumni Engagement Officer with the CSE Alumni team. Today's webinar's format will include a presentation by a speaker who I will introduce very shortly, followed by a Q&A session after the presentation. Today's webinar is on the topic machine learning, blockchain technology, and sustainable development in Africa. And presenting this webinar today, we have with us Commonwealth alumnus Faithful Chiagozeme Onwuegbuche. A brief introduction about Faithful. Faithful is currently pursuing his PhD in machine learning and blockchain technology at the SFI Center for Research Training in Machine Learning at the University of Dublin. He has over 5 years of work experience gained as a data scientist, machine learning and blockchain researcher, a teacher, community developer, and a leader in several projects. Faithful will provide detailed information about himself. He's created a really good deck of slides, which also includes a good introduction about himself. So I will let him do a introduction on himself, but also to let you know that Faithful has served as the West Scotland Regional Network Coordinator during his time as a Commonwealth Scholar. Faithful is a 2019 Commonwealth Shared Scholar from Nigeria, and he has completed his MSc in Financial Technology, which is FinTech, at the University of Stirling. So Faithful, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise on this really interesting topic. I would now leave the floor to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Eva. Thank you for everything you've done to ensure that this session, is wonderful. So thank you. I just want to welcome everybody to this session. Can you hear me clearly, please?
Yes.
All right.
Loud and clear.
Exactly. So just want to say thank you to everybody for joining in. I'm really excited to be here. It's really a great privilege for me to have received the invitation by the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission to give this talk on machine learning and blockchain technology and sustainable development in Africa. Now, these are topics that are, that I'm very, very much passionate about. So I hope I don't overtalk. I hope I, stay calm and deliver a good webinar. So once again, thank you for joining. Just a little brief introduction about myself. So as you've heard, my name is Faithful Chiagozeme Onwuegbuche. I studied mathematics and statistics at the Ignatius Ajuri University of Education, Nigeria. So I graduated in 2014 with a first-class honors and as the overall best grading student. And then I proceeded to Pan-African University, Kenya, with funding from the African Union to do research in financial mathematics. And then in 2019, I was privileged to be awarded the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and I obtained an MSc in Financial Technology at the University of Stirling, UK. So currently, I'm with the SFI Center for Research Training in Machine Learning at the University College Dublin. So there I'm undertaking a PhD studies in machine learning and blockchain technology. So I'm going to tell you more about my research as we go along, in the talk. So that's a little introduction about myself. And so for the table of content today, the things we are going to be covering is that we'll start with a wide-wing tour of the fourth industrial revolution. So we talk about the different 4 industrial revolutions, and then we'll look at the concept of machine learning and blockchain technology. And after doing that, we'll see how machine learning and blockchain technology is currently being used. So during this time, I'm also going to be saying how Africa can also use machine learning during that time also. And then I would majorly highlight few sectors because this is just a 40 minutes to 1 hour talk. I can possibly cover all the ways in which blockchain technology and machine learning can be used in sustainable development. In fact, there are novel ways that we can use this technology that no one knows yet. That's why we have innovative people here, thinking and, bringing up different solutions. So I'll do my best to highlight some few key areas, how machine learning and blockchain technology can be used for sustainable development of Africa. And then I'll look at very few, future of machine learning and blockchain technology and the conclusion, and then we'll be done, okay? And then I will take your questions. So first of all, with the fourth industrial revolution, we've heard this term a lot, going to conferences, you hear 4IR as it's popularly called, And first of all, I want us to understand that revolution denotes an abrupt and radical change. According to Klaus Schwab, he made, a statement that revolution occurs when new technologies and novel ways of perceiving the world trigger a profound change in economic systems and social structure. So if we think back, as far back years, thousands of years ago, during the agrarian revolution, what we saw was that there was the domestication of animals, and then we could now use the horse, in agricultural processes, that led to, we also use the horses for transportations, so that led to improvement in the production. It led to improvement in transportation and also in communication. So we saw that in the agrarian revolution, where we tried to domesticate animals and combine them with, human or manual power, it led improvement in, production. It led improvement in our processes. And then we, according to Klaus Schwab, we can distinctly divide the industrial revolution, to begin in the 1700s by the invention of the steam engine. So when the steam engine was invented in the 1700s, it triggered improvement in transportation. So, and then we had the rail systems through the development of the steam engine. It also improved mechanical production. So these improvements in the first, industrial revolution, it radically changed, the societal, it led to economic radical changes. And then we went to the second industrial revolution, which we saw around the 1800s to the 1900s, which was triggered by the invention of electricity, right? And then it also was triggered by the invention of the assembly line. So then we could have mass production. So if you think about the electricity invention and what the second industrial revolution did, was that it radically changed the first revolution, in the sense that it brought to us what we call mass production now, okay? And the rise of also cities. And then the third industrial revolution was around 1900s. We saw, the development of computers, right, around the 1900s. And then we also saw the mainframe computer being developed in 1960s, personal computer developed in 1970s and 1980s, and the internet was, invented in the 1990s. Now, this invention, okay, which it triggered a lot of things, actually. We now have more improved communication through the enablement of the social media. We have now the Facebook, the emails, the Gmails, and the likes, you see. And then we also have the target marketing, by new, and also the creation of new marketplaces in Amazon, Airbnb, and the like. So these now created what we call the third industrial revolution, right? And some persons will argue that the fourth industrial revolution is nothing different than the third, but as many would note, is that we are experiencing another radical change, okay? We are experiencing radical change, and these, is characterized by, a much more ubiquitous and mobile internet. It's also characterized by, more powerful sensors, that have become cheaper, and also they are also powered by artificial intelligence and, machine learning. So this fourth industrial revolution that we are in right now from all the revolutions, we can picture a specific lesson. There's a lesson we can gain from all the different revolutions I just mentioned now, is that according to Klaus Schwab, he said, still valid today is the lesson from the first industrial revolution, that the extent to which society embraces technological innovation is a major determinant of progress. So for societies to progress, they have to adopt these new technologies in driving that progress, in driving that development, and also mitigate the risks associated with the use of these technologies. Now, there are several technologies currently that are driving this fourth industrial revolution. I will not pretend to say that I'm going to cover all of these technologies. No. So we have like the Internet of Things, we have additive manufacturing, we have cyber physical systems, we have industrial communication networks, we have quantum computing. We have several different technologies that are driving the fourth industrial revolution. But for the sake of this talk, I'm just going to be highlighting two of them: machine learning and blockchain technology. So I will start now by saying, what is machine learning, But before I really define, or give a meaning to the term blockchain, what is machine learning, I would like to say that traditionally humans have, we've always been able to analyze data. Now, take, for example, the farmer that, needs to count his or her, livestock, and you want to count the livestock so that you know the number of feet to buy, so that you know how to transport your livestock. Humans have always been able to analyze data, but when data becomes so large as we are having currently, once data becomes so large, it becomes very difficult for humans to analyze the data. Now, let us look at 1 minute on the internet in 2021. So in just 1 minute, just 60 seconds in 2021, according to Statista, in just 1 minute, we have 69 million messages sent on Facebook Messenger and on WhatsApp. In just 60 seconds, we have 197.6 million emails sent. We have 500 hours of content uploaded to the YouTube. We have 1.6 million USD spent online in just 60 seconds. In just 60 seconds, we have 695,000 stories shared on Instagram. So you can see from this that currently we are generating enormous amount of data, and the data we are generating are not just numeric data. We are generating text data, we are generating audio data, we are generating video data, we are generating pictures, we are generating data with different types other than what we are always used to, which are the numbers and possibly, text files. Now, the development of all this means that the traditional means of analyzing this data becomes very difficult. So there is need now for a different way or a different approach of analyzing this data. Now, this brings us to what we call machine learning. Now, there are different terms flying around over there. We have machine learning, we have artificial intelligence, and we have deep learning, okay? So, but for the sake of this talk, I'm just going to be using machine learning to denote any of these, right? So artificial intelligence is seen like, it's just an umbrella term that denotes, the theory and development of computer systems that are able to perform tasks that normally requires human intelligence. So the development of intelligent, agents or intelligent machines that can perform tasks just like humans will. That's what we call artificial intelligence in broad terms. But machine learning actually now is a branch or a branch of artificial intelligence that seeks to teach machines how to learn and perform tasks that humans can perform without being explicitly programmed to do so. Think about traditional software engineering. If you want the computer to perform a specific task, you have to tell the computer the specific task to perform. But currently, with machine learning, you can teach the machine, and then the machine will be able to learn and perform that task without being explicitly programmed to do so. And deep learning is just a branch of machine learning now, and it seeks to mimic the functioning of the human brain. So what really happens in machine learning? You have a data. Now, this data can be any type of data. It can be a numeric data, it can be a text data, it can be, your picture from your social media, it can be the text you wrote on your tweet, it can be any type of data. So I'm just giving a high-level process now. There are other sub-processes that are hidden, just for the sake of simplicity. So what you need to do before training, actually, there are other processes like training, like preparation, data cleaning, data wrangling, and all that. But just for the sake of simplicity, okay, so after you get your data, you clean your data, you prepare your data, and you make it ready for training, you feed this. In training, what we mean is that you're feeding this data to the machine learning algorithm, and the machine learning algorithm would, try to learn the patterns of that data. And in learning the patterns of that data, the machine learning algorithm will come up with a model. Now, this model will be tested to see if it is doing exactly what you want it to do. And when you test it and you find out that it is doing exactly what you want it to do, then you deploy. Now, in deploying it, it may be that you want to answer some questions. It may be that you want to make predictions. It may be that you want to make recommendations of the next movie to watch. It may be that you want to classify if a specific patient has malaria or not. Okay, so this is just a high-level understanding of what machine learning is. And it may not seem so, but machine learning is currently being used in several ways, around us, in several ways just around us. Machine learning actually is everywhere. It is everywhere, and I'm talking about this. I'm also going to be highlighting how Africa can also tap into machine learning. In your image and your voice recognition systems, machine learning is being used, in developing image and voice recognition systems. Right now, you can talk to Siri and say, "Hi, Siri, set an alarm for 2 p.m. and Siri will set an alarm for 2 p.m. for you. What is making that possible is by the help of machine learning, okay? All right, so right now also we have image recognition. You can upload your face, your picture on Facebook, and Facebook will be able to detect that this person, the person on this picture, is Faithful Chiagozem Onwuegbuche. How was Facebook able, out of all the millions of people on Facebook, able to detect that the person on this photo is Faithful? Is by the use of machine learning. So machine learning is also being used in several other ways, really. We have your language translation. You want to translate your language from Swahili to English, okay? Habari yako in Swahili, you want to find what is the meaning of habari yako in English. You're using your Google Translate, but Google Translate underneath it is being built with machine learning. Also, we have different, we have your predictive analytics, okay? Say, for example, you want to understand the stock that you need to buy. You want to understand, okay, if your internet, your network is being infiltrated by, a cyber attacker. So you want to be able to also predict, who would most likely win a game. Maybe your favorite team is playing. You want to be able to predict if your favorite team will win a game. You also want to be able to, predict, the health risk factors of different people. All these are being done currently using machine learning. Also in machine learning, there's also what we call, recommended systems. So recommended systems. So we have situations whereby you go on Amazon and you want to buy a specific item, and Amazon will recommend to you and tell you that, a person that purchased a book also purchased a pen. So those recommendations are done using machine learning. You also go on Netflix and you want to watch a movie, and recommendations are also being made to you. Okay, those that watch this movie also saw this other movie, so maybe you're going to be interested in it. So all these recommendations are being made possible by machine learning. We also have virtual assistants, be it virtual as trading assistants. Right now, if you want to trade the financial market, you can use a machine learning model to help you trade the financial market automatically. We also see that machine learning is being used for sentiment analysis. Now, in sentiment analysis, basically, you're trying to find out the emotions that are being expressed on the text you see. How do you know if a tweet is positive or a tweet is negative or a tweet is neutral without reading the tweet yourself? So for all these applications, machine learning is currently being used in doing all this. So I know right now I have really spent a lot of time talking about what is machine learning and how it's currently being used. So I will move to the other part of our talk, which is blockchain technology. Okay, so blockchain now is a shared immutable ledger that facilitates process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a business network. Now, what do I mean basically? I simply mean that a blockchain is a decentralized ledger. Just like you have your school records, you have your school ledger. This ledger is a decentralized ledger in which every node in the network contain the same information on the same transactions. And these transactions are verified using cryptographic, functions and timestamp. Now, blockchain was invented by, an unknown person. Well, we would say an unknown person or group of persons, called Satoshi Nakamoto, in 2008. And we saw that it was through the invention of the Bitcoin, and then he released his white paper that he described, Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer, electronic cash system. Now, due to this, many people erroneously think that when we talk about blockchain, then we are basically talking about Bitcoin and we are talking about only cryptocurrencies. Actually, Bitcoin is one of the successful applications of the blockchain technology. Or you can say in general, cryptocurrency, we've seen that they are one of the successful applications of the blockchain technology. But however, they are not the only. The blockchain technology can be used in several ways, as I'm going to highlight here. Now, what is the simple idea here? The blockchain tries to eliminate the middleman. Now, think about this. For me to send money from where I am now in Ireland to somebody that is in Nigeria, I have to go through several middlemen, really. When I'm making that transaction, there are people in the middle of the transaction that ensure that the transaction is safe and that ensure that this transaction gets to the right person. And for doing this, they take what is called their charges, really. And sometimes it can be very, very expensive, remittances. But in the blockchain now, what it does is to remove the middleman and allow me to, transact with another peer, probably in Nigeria, without the need for any intermediary, and do it also in a secure way. So that's what a high-level understanding of what, blockchain is all about. Now, how does the blockchain work? Okay, so for example, let's say a person wants to make a request for a transaction. Now, maybe that transaction is to transfer a specific amount of cryptocurrency or a specific value. It can be anything. The value here can actually be anything. So a person, probably makes a request for a transaction. Now, this request would be broadcasted, this request that a person makes, it will form what we call, a block. So it's a block will be created that contains this request. Then this block will be, shared, or broadcasted in the nodes in the network. And every node in this network will then, validate that, the transaction that is being asked to be added to the block, it's a valid transaction, it's a valid value that's being shared and everything. And then when, these different nodes have, validated it, the block will be added to the chain, and then the transaction will be verified and executed. So this is just like a high level, process, in which transactions get added to the chain. Now, there are several ways in which the blockchain technology is currently being used other than cryptocurrency. Okay. Now, according to Peter tried to, just try to divide all these processes in 4 key areas. One of it is the digital currency. So we can see that blockchain technology is being used for e-commerce. We can see that blockchain technology is used in peer-to-peer lending, is used for microfinance, is used for global payments. Also, blockchain technology can be used for record keeping. So you want to, for example, have, keep a title for your landed property. You want to keep a title for maybe a particular asset that you have. Blockchain technology is being used in that way. Also in blockchain technology are what we call smart contracts. And these smart contracts, basically, what they ensure is that they ensure that when we agree to do a specific thing, that thing is being done without us being, going in between the process, trying to execute it ourselves. The contract will be executed automatically once we meet certain specific, conditions as specified by the contract. We can also see that blockchain technology is being used for crowdfunding to raise credit and all that. So blockchain technology is being used in several of these ways, and Africa can also use blockchain technology in these ways also. We can use that, and I'm going to share a little about that, in the next slides. Now, I'll pause a bit now to talk about how Africa can utilize these technologies for sustainable development. Okay. Now, first of all, there's something we need to note about Africa. And that is that Africa is blessed with enormous human and material resources. We also need to affirm that Africa, according to Statista 2022, is that Africa is the continent with the youngest population worldwide. And for this 4th industrial revolution, according to Klaus Schwab, more than ever before, in this 4th industrial revolution, he said that he is convinced of one thing, that in the future, talent more than capital will represent the critical factor of production. So Africa, we have the young people, we have the talented people. As we all know, talent is evenly distributed, but opportunities are not. So this talk right now will be, so for us as Africans, the best that we have is our young people, and we need to see how we can equip them with this knowledge so that they in turn can then develop Africa and give us the Africa that we want. So we all know about the Sustainable Development Goals. I believe I'm talking to most Commonwealth scholars, and this is what we do. So, but just for the sake of completeness, sustainable development, is just that development that meets the current needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations, to meet their own needs. So in essence, you can really say that, a sustainable development project is that is economically viable, socially inclusive, and environmentally friendly. And we know that there are several of these goals. United Nations have listed several of these goals, and like goal 1, which is no poverty, goal 4, which is quality education, goal 5, gender equality, goal 13, which is climate action, goal 16 being peace and justice, and strong institutions, goal 17 being partnership to achieve, the goals. And also Africa, we came out together and we also asked ourselves, what is the future we want for ourselves? And we tried to document this in the Africa Agenda 2063. So we said that by 2063, Africa should have achieved all this. Number 1 aspiration we have is that we want to build a prosperous Africa that is based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. We also, aspiration 4 says we want to build a peaceful and secure Africa. When we look at the aspiration 7, we want to build Africa that is strong, united, and an influential global player and partner. So for us to do this, we then need to harness the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. However, yes, in achieving our goals. So I'm just going to go to the next slide now. Okay, so how can Africa utilize blockchain for sustainable development? Now, there are several ways in which Africa can use blockchain. I would not be able to cover every way possible that we can use it because I don't even know all the ways. There are innovative ways that we can use this technology that nobody has currently used. That is why we need young people in the sector to think innovatively and use innovative techniques in achieving the sustainable development. But one of the key areas in which we can use blockchain is for financial inclusion and creating new marketplaces. So we've seen that some central banks in Africa are moving for central bank-based digital currencies. We could see that recently Nigeria, released or launched what they call the e-Naira, which is a digital representation of the fiat currency, the Nigerian Naira. And what this helps is that it helps in cross-border payments. It helps in cross-border payment. It reduces the friction in transferring, money from one person to the other. And also blockchain technology can help us, in crowdfunding. There are several innovative young people. You go around, innovation hubs, you will see several innovative projects that young Africans have proposed. But sometimes the limiting factor is that they don't have the funding for these projects. So blockchain technology can be used to create a platform in which we can do crowdfunding for the best ideas that would help in solving problems in the communities. Okay. So blockchain can also help us, in creating capital for those that need capital, just as I said, in using crowd, funding. Also with blockchain, we can create new marketplaces. Just like you've heard, I know most persons have heard about the non-fungible token market, the NFT market. The NFT here meaning non-fungible token. So this is just a place where if you have your non-fungible assets, in non-fungible here now, I mean, an asset that is unique to you, an asset that is unique that you want to trade. You can trade it on the NFT market, and then you have, you create wealth for yourself and also create value in the system. Also, one of the biggest ideas that came up of recent in Africa from the African Union was the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which was one of the flagship projects of the Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And the single idea of this Africa Continental Free Trade Area is that we want to create Africa that trades amongst itself. Currently, the population of Africa is over 1.2 billion people. So imagine if 1.2 billion people are trading amongst themselves, it will create a lot of value. It will create a lot of jobs. It will create a lot of things that we've not seen, before. Because currently we've seen that most African countries, we do not trade amongst ourselves. So we want to boost inter-African trade. Blockchain technology can be used to help us trade amongst ourselves, to help us pay, for goods and services across borders in a secure manner. There are other ways in which blockchain technology can be used. It can also be used in the healthcare system. Now, I'm not going to talk about this so much, but I would just like you to note that there is a problem of drug counterfeiting. According to the World Health Organization, as many as 1 in 10 medical products circulating in developing countries are substandard or falsified. Now, this is even worse when you think about it in the African context. According to WHO, they said of all the fake drugs that are reported to the WHO between 2013 and 2017, 42% of the reports came from the African region. So we're seeing that most of the drugs that are being used or sold in Africa are fake or, falsified drugs. And people are taking this drug hoping that they will get better, and they are not getting better, and people are dying. So what can we do is that we can ensure that we can use blockchain technology to improve the traceability of these drugs. We can develop platforms in which whenever a drug is manufactured, it is being registered on the blockchain. The process of that drug leaving the manufacturing office to the wholesaler, to the retailer, to the pharmacist, and to the consumer can all be recorded on a blockchain. And since the blockchain ensures that transaction has been recorded cannot be deleted, then we would have what we call traceability. So is also one of the ways in which we can use blockchain. I'm going to run through this now. We all know this problem so well, the problem of elections. When it's election time, everybody's out there promising all that they can promise, and at the end of the day, we don't see most of those things being delivered. Chinwe Achebe said something in the Nigerian context when he wrote his classic book called The Trouble with Nigeria. In the first chapter of that book, the first paragraph, the first sentence Chinwe Achebe made was that the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. That there's no problem with the Nigerian people. There's no problem with the Nigerian, land and anything. It's just a failure of leadership. Now, blockchain cannot train leaders. Blockchain cannot, give us good leaders. But blockchain can ensure that if we vote on the blockchain, it can ensure that the desired candidate that we are voting for is the desired candidate that would get that office. All right. So there are other ways in which we can use blockchain technology. Also in education, there is also a lot of certificate fraud in which many people are carrying certificates that they did not, achieve themselves. But with the blockchain technology, we can ensure that every certificate is, recorded on the blockchain, and it will not be changed. And through that, we can track and see if a person is saying that they've gone to this school and that school, we can track and find out if really they did. Now, there is a big case of this going right now in Nigeria where people, canvassing for political offices, they are trying to see, did they have the certificate or not, and all that. But if we, have this certificate uploaded and recorded on the blockchain, those issues will not be there. Now, we can also use the blockchain technology in land management. Currently there are also several issues around land ownership in Africa, whereby you can buy land like 10 or 5 times. You can buy a land that has already been bought, 3 times and 5 times, and then you go to the courts trying to prove that you're the owner of that land, not knowing that 10 other persons have already bought the same property. But with the blockchain technology, we can be able to trace this. If we have all the land system, on a blockchain technology, we know how the land has been changing, the ownership. So at any point in time, you will know the original and the true owner of a specific property. Now, there are other ways it can be used, for law enforcement using smart contract. I think I said a little bit about this, previously. Now, I would not say, these are just few highlights of how we can use blockchain technology to develop, Africa, or to achieve sustainable development. So now I'll move to machine learning. Now, it's hard, really, really very hard to talk about these two technologies in one webinar session, but I hope I will just give those high ideas out there, and I believe that most of us can pick it up from there. So one of the ways we can use machine learning, and one of the ways machine learning is also currently being used. Remember, there was a slide that I had where I talked about how machine learning is currently being used. We can also use those same ways in improving Africa, But one of the ways we see is in business development, So probably you have a business idea and you want to scale this idea. You want to be able to understand your market. For you to be able to understand your market and be able to predict how many persons would be interested in this product, where are they going to be coming from? What region of the country? would be interested in this product. You want to do targeted marketing. For you to do targeted marketing and personalized marketing, you need to use the machine learning in all these processes. Also, there's also language. In Africa, we are blessed with lots of lovely languages, but these languages are going extinct, and we need to develop, machine learning models that will be able to translate languages from one language to the other. I know that there are some languages that are currently being captured by, probably Google Translate, the major languages in Africa, like the Swahili, Igbo, Hausa, and all that. But there are also some low resource level languages, that are not being captured at the moment. So we as Africans, we need to think of ways in which we can capture this to ensure that our heritage is not lost. And there are several researchers working in this area. And if you want to, work in this area, you can reach out to me. I can link you up to several researchers currently looking at this. Also machine learning can be used for predictive analytics. I said a lot about this in the previous slide, and those things still hold true for Africa. We can use it for predictive analytics. We can use it for precision medicine. We can also use it for agriculture. Think about agriculture and think about all the processes of agriculture. And think about the goals of no poverty. Think about the goals of food security. Think about all those goals. Machine learning can be used for agricultural processes, be it in the livestock, in ensuring that the crops are healthy, in predicting diseases in livestock, be it in the financial aspect of the business, in predicting also the sales of a specific product in the marketplace, how the market is going to respond to a specific product, if the customers are going to like it. These, processes can be done using machine learning in as much as we have the data. So also in manufacturing, we can make use of machine learning. We can make use of machine learning in fintech, and we're already seeing that being, done already. We have Africa, it has a very rich fintech ecosystem currently, and we can see the big players there, making use of machine learning, in predicting who gets a loan, in predicting who will default to a specific loan, and know who is the best person to give a loan, which is also increasing the economic activity in Africa. So there are other ways in which we can use machine learning. Climate modeling. Really, we can use machine learning if we have the data to predict, what will be the temperature of Nairobi in 10 years' time. What will be for example, what will be the sea level rise in Tanzania in 50 years' time from now? We can use machine learning to predict all this climate change, issues, and from that make better policies, make better decisions on how to save our planet. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about my research. I can see that I'm running out of time already, so I'm going to skip through this. I'll talk about this just in a short while. So what I'm working on currently is that I'm trying to use or apply machine learning and blockchain technology in finance and cybersecurity. So these are my areas that I'm working on. So basically what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to work in the area where I detect financial fraud. I also build, secure financial system, and then through that increase financial inclusion. According to one of the aspirations of the African Agenda 2063 is to build, an Africa that is peaceful and that is secure. And we cannot be talking about security in this day and age if we are not talking about cybersecurity. We cannot also be talking about development if we are not talking about economic development. So my research basically is in this intersection of machine learning and blockchain technology applied in finance and cybersecurity. I'm also looking at other areas, but these are my major areas. But for my current research right now, I'm working in what we call the ransomware attack. Now, a ransomware is a computer virus that is developed, and spread, around, in a network. And what happens is that when people click on this, malicious files and they are downloaded on a system, it corrupts the system, it locks the system, it blocks the system, or does some malicious things on the system and then demands for a ransom. And most of these ransom are demanded using cryptocurrencies. So we could see that a technology that can be used for good can also be used for evil. So what my research seeks to do is to ensure that this technology is used in the right way, and then those that would try to want to use it in the wrong way are being stopped. So we can see this, that in South Africa, just recently, there was a ransomware attack, in ShopRite. Now, Africa is not alone in this. In just last year, 2020, May 2021, the Irish, health system was attacked by sophisticated ransomware. And then, in 2017, NHS in the UK was attacked by a ransomware, and it cost them, 92 million pounds. US has also been attacked by a ransomware attack. The Colonial Pipeline was attacked by a ransomware, and it cost them 5 million, to pay for a ransom to get their files. So I am trying to work in this area and to see how machine learning and our blockchain can be used to secure systems, to secure networks, to make, our systems more secure. So one of the challenges, I'll just run through this now because I'm running out of time. So one of the challenges we possibly see in machine learning is that you can't be doing machine learning if you don't have data. And right now we are moving to what we call data-centric AI or data-centric machine learning, which is being popularized by Andrew Ng. Now, data-centric machine learning seeks to have quality data. We need to have quality data. We need to have data that reflect the African context. And for us to do so, we need to create data infrastructure. So these are one of the challenges. And for us to solve it, the government and even we as people, we need to see how we can create data infrastructure. If you have a business, then you should be thinking about how to create data infrastructure to store those data and use the data ethically. Now that's where the next thing comes in, bias and discrimination. Most times when machine learning models are being developed, it's one way or the other has effect in the society. So we need to develop machine learning models and systems that are not harmful to society, that does not amplify the bias and the discrimination that is already existing in society. So these are one of the challenges and that we see in the sector. Also for blockchain, some blockchain technology can be energy, they can consume a lot of energy. And then when we are, canvassing for sustainable energy, we need to develop blockchain, that are also energy efficient. And there are several works in this already. But for the both cases, one of the challenges we are having is regulations. Most times those that are giving regulations, for the use of these technologies are not really conversant with these technologies. So sometimes they give strict regulations that hinders the development of the sector, or they give loose regulations that increases or amplifies the risks of using these technologies. So we need to have adequate regulations that promotes innovative applications of these technologies and also reduces the risks of these technologies also. We also need to have regulations that are ethical, that ensures that these technologies are used in ethical way, in trustworthy and inclusive manner. And another big thing that we need to look about is education. We need to educate. There's currently a digital divide. We all know this. I don't need to go over this. There's currently a digital divide. So we need to see how we can train more people, in this area so that they also can ensure the Africa that we want. Well, I'll be saying, just running through this. I think one of the future of machine learning that I see is the use of machine learning in almost every sector. Now, I'm not going to go into the jargons of the technical machine learning jargons and the technical future of machine learning, because that may not be helpful to most of the participants here, since most of us are not in the machine learning space. But what I can say is that machine learning would be used in almost every sector. So think about any sector that you have, you think about whereby data can be generated, then machine learning can be used to improve the processes and the services. So we are also thinking about a time when the machine learning models themselves will be able to what we call automatic machine learning or auto machine learning, whereby from the beginning point to the end point, everything will just be done by the machine themselves. The machine learning should be able to also develop, write its own code and all that. But I don't want to go into the technical details because that will be too technical. So, but in the blockchain side of things, we see that there's going to be novel marketplaces that will be created. More than what we are currently seeing now, we are going to see the development of novel marketplaces. We're also going to be seeing the development of more sustainable blockchains that are energy efficient. Well, I think since I've taken much time, I would say in conclusion, I will try to reiterate the words of Klaus Schwab, which he said that he's convinced of one thing, that in the future, talent more than capital will represent the critical factor of production. So right now, Africa is blessed to be, having the largest young population in the world. We have the young talent. Talents are evenly distributed. Opportunities are not. We need to ensure that we take this knowledge and, train the young, eager, vibrant Africans, and they would ensure the development of these technologies and the use of these technologies in the sustainable development. So machine learning and blockchain, it gives Africa a unique opportunity to leapfrog in our development and achieve sustainable development. We've been left out in the first revolution, second, and the third. And some African countries are still struggling to achieve electricity, still struggling to have internet. But while we are all thinking about still, putting the infrastructure of the internet, putting the infrastructure of electricity, putting the infrastructure of, railroads, we should not forget that we also need to be key players in the development of these technologies like the machine learning and blockchain, and also be key players in utilizing this technology in our own development, because if we don't do it, somebody will do it for us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faithful. That was a very insightful presentation on machine learning and blockchain technologies. And it was really interesting to know about the ways in which the continent of Africa can use these technologies to achieve sustainable development. And given that, the continent, interestingly, has the highest number of younger people's population, which is always a plus point in, adapting to technologies. I must say your webinar presentation has received a lot of positive responses and feedback in the chat box. And this is now a time for a Q&A session. I'd like to open the Q&A session. But also to let you know, we may slightly run over time. We will take around 4 to 5 questions in the Q&A session. However, this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available on the CSE's YouTube channel. And if you are keen on connecting with Faithful and getting in touch with Faithful and asking any further questions that you might have, please do so via LinkedIn. As you can see, their LinkedIn account detail on the screen. I will also, Faithful is also very happy to connect with everyone, or all the Commonwealth scholars and alumni, to discuss further details on this topic via the Knowledge Hub promoting global prosperity. So please do connect with Faithful via the Knowledge Hub as well if you have any questions that we might not be able to cover today, given the time limit. All right, Faithful. So I am going to bring 2 questions to you that we have received in advance to the webinar presentation via the registration form. If you're ready with for the Q&A session.
Yes, please.
Great. So the first question is, what are the risk and key risks anticipated in these emerging ICT innovations that can derail rather than enhance the sustainable development goals in Africa if they are not handled well?
Oh, thank you so much. I think that's a very insightful question. So the question simply is like, what are the key risks, that would hamper the development, the sustainable development that we are all canvassing for if these technologies are not handled properly and handled well. And sincerely, we are seeing those risks. The risk number one in using machine learning models is that you need to use data. And if your data is not inclusive, if your data does not capture the ideals of your society in an inclusive manner, it then means that if the data is biased, it means that the models you're going to be generating will be skewed towards one direction. And when it's done, when that is done, it means that it's going to be amplifying the bias that is already existing in society. So one of the ways we can ensure that this is not happening is by ensuring quality data. And by also ensuring that this data, has to be checked to ensure that it is ethical, it is inclusive before it is being used to develop machine learning models. We're also seeing that with the use of these technologies like the blockchain technology is the increased cyber attack. Whereas the blockchain itself is secure, really, the blockchain itself is secure, but the platforms on which people are operating on, maybe be it their mobile phones, be it their laptops, may not be secure, because what is representing you is your password, really, on online platforms. What represents you is your username and your password. So if somebody can get access to your username and your password, if you don't have two-factor authentication and other authentication processes being implemented, the person can also claim to be you and go away with all your funds. So as we are seeing the rise of the technologies being used, we're also seeing that malicious users are also coming in the space, increasing the cyber threat. So therefore, we then need to train ourselves in the proper, in cybersecurity ethics and cybersecurity, to be conscious about cybersecurity. We also need to train ourselves in the conscious use of these technologies. There are other ways, but I think these two suffice. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your response to that question. The next question is quite an interesting question. It's around what are the tools and platforms to learn about machine learning and blockchain?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, really. The tools and platforms to learn about blockchain. I must say that the internet is very good in this regard. But one of the ways you can possibly learn, if you want to learn in a methodological, in a good manner, is by going to a university like the University of Stirling in UK, where I studied for my fintech, and also thank Commonwealth for sponsoring my education in that. So if you're here, probably those that will listen to this later on, you want to get a good understanding of these technologies, apply to the Commonwealth Scholarship and then to one of the courses and go for that. But then for those that are already Commonwealth alumni, really, or Commonwealth scholars that are not doing courses that are related to blockchain technology, one of the ways you can learn is to go online and go to platforms like Coursera, EDX, FutureLearn. These platforms are, they have educational material around these topics. If you want to know the specific courses that you will need to take, you can just send me a message on LinkedIn, or in LinkedIn most importantly, and then I can share some of this with you. But Coursera, EDX, and just using the web basically are places where you can find information about this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing the different platforms where we can go and access information on machine learning and blockchain technology. All right, we are now, it is the end of the presentation, the webinar. However, if attendees are leaving the presentation, the webinar, please do note that the webinar recording will be made available on CSE's YouTube channel. However, I'm happy to extend the Q&A session by 5 more minutes, if Faithful, if that's all right with you, so we can take two more questions from our participants. Is that fine with you, Faithful?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Oh, perfect. All right. There's a question in the chat box from Sylvia. First of all, thank you for your very insightful presentation. The question is regarding the lack of existing legislation in many African countries to regulate the use of most of these technologies. Do you think we are ready for mass use of these technologies, especially in the public sector?
Well, that's a very nice question to ask, if we are ready. I think some countries are ready, some countries are not. However, I would like to look at it from the perspective that we can be ready. Even if we are not ready at the moment, you know, even if those countries and some countries are not ready at the moment because probably the infrastructure is not in place, the infrastructure here, be it the internet and all that, is not in place. One thing we can say is that we can be ready. There are massive developments going on in Africa in terms of creating this infrastructure, and the policy, you know, decisions that needs to be taken. There are people in Africa that are equipped with the knowledge. They may be few right now, but we are believing that they would increase as time goes on. But there are people in Africa that have the knowledge, you know, to develop these regulations. I think, you know, most importantly, we need to have the vision. We need to have the political will to do, you know, to use this for our benefit. But in terms of readiness, some countries are ready, some countries are already using it, while some countries are lagging behind, and those lagging behind can catch up as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Faithful. Right, very quickly, a question by TM Simon, who is saying to gain user trust, most apps in the world today supposedly have a safety and security feature. Yeah. How do you tell they are actually secure, given they are always open to return-oriented attacks? And how do you avoid data breach in applications that seek to access your files?
Well, first of all, I will start with the last question, how to ensure data breach. The first thing you need to do is to, and this is not an, you know, is not all, I'm not giving all the ways really, because each and every one of us, we need to be, you know, be trained in cybersecurity, at least the basic cybersecurity on how to, you know, make use of most of these gadgets that we have. But then the one of the basic way, you know, of going to a platform is to ensure that you're on the right platform. Say, for example, you're going to Google. Are you sure you're on Google or you're on Go0, then GLE? So you need to be sure, because sometimes what hackers do is that, for example, you have a bank called Faithful Bank, and Faithful has one I. The I can be changed to L, and then you're thinking that you're on Faithful Bank. The platform is the same, but you're not on Faithful Bank. So the first thing you need to do is to ensure that you're on the right, you know, platform. And that platform, you should, you know, ensure that they is a platform that, they take cybersecurity and they take your privacy seriously. If they are already, if they've been shown in the past not to take your privacy seriously, then you should also have, different layers of security. How do you know a platform that is secure? Is a platform that has different layers of security. So you keep an eye for all this when using any platform, and I think you'll be relatively safe. But this is not to say that what I've said now is all that there is to it. There's still a lot more.
Perfect. I think with this, we are going to end the Q&A session. Faithful, thank you so much for your responses to the questions. Unfortunately, we do not have more time today, but thank you so much. Would you like to summarize before we do a final wrap up of the webinar?
I think to summarize this session, I would like to first of all say thank you once again. I can see there are a lot of people on the participant list, and they've stayed up till the very end. A lot of them have stayed up to the very end. So I want to say thank you very much. Please, if you have ideas, if you have things that we can discuss about, do reach out to me. I'm open to ideas. My brain is open. And then what I want to say about other countries that joined in is that these same technologies can be used in other countries. I know I've been specific on the African continent, but this is not to say that it cannot be used in other parts of the world. In other parts of the world, it can also be used. And I want to say that the time is now for us to gain, the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution and use that in making the world a better place. Yeah. Thank you all, and see you next time.